So welcome to today's interview, and today I'm joined by Richard Gamble. And Richard's going to be talking to us about a really exciting project that he's got underway. So Richard, welcome to the interview, the GLS interview.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. It's been brilliant to be following your process, in fact, over the last number of years since you came to share some information, share where you were a few years ago with the Global Leadership Summit. And I know we're going to be catching up with all the stuff that you've been doing since then. So I'm really excited to learn more about what you're doing and dig in a little deeper to some of the leadership issues that have uncovered along the way. But before we dig into the detail, just tell us a little bit about you. Where do you come from? Where did you grow up? And who's in your family? Who's in your circle of influence?
Yeah, so I need to get the family right, don't I? Get the names right, otherwise I'll be in trouble. No, I'm married with 3 children. 2 of them just gone off to university. So I am as poor as you think I am, paying for all that, and one who's 12. I live in Leicestershire, South Leicestershire, born and bred in Worcester. And have a pretty varied career, really. I love marketing consultancy, working for SMEs for a number of years. Built my own software business and sold it 10 years later. And then have really worked with a number of companies, building them fast. I think that's my main experience. And then was also chaplain to Leicester City Football Club, but only when they were rubbish. That is my main.
And somewhere in my research, you were involved in sorting out bad crisps at a crisp factory as well.
Yes, that's right. On the night shift at Walker's Crisps, picking out the bad ones.
There
Yes,
you go. We
yeah.
all remember days like that, don't we? So in terms of the eternal wall, this is a dream that you've now got that's starting to come into focus. One definition I have of leadership is looking beyond the horizon and seeing what other people don't see. When did you get the inspiration? When did you first get the inspiration for the Eternal Wall project? And what did you
Yeah,
imagine it was going to look like?
yeah. I mean, I feel like it was a sort of a vision, a flash through my mind that came 17 years ago. I know that's a long time. I looked a lot better 17 years ago, I can tell you. But it was just this flash of vision, picture that sort of gave me this concept of building this piece of public art that would be sort of like a wall sculpture, but made of 1 million bricks, where every brick represents a story of answered prayer. And in business sense, what problem are we trying to solve? Is just getting into the public consciousness stories of the things that God has done throughout the nation's history, because it's so hard to get any decent coverage on the media for those sort of things, and to try and break out of the sort of traditional church space and allow people to think about whether prayer should be part of their daily experience.
So, which came first? Was it the wall? Was it the prayer? Was it which? How did this
It,
vision and
yeah, it
emerge?
all came as well. It all came as a flood in one sort of moment, but then that was sort of like the flash of the idea, which I then sort of grabbed to sort of meditate on, really. And then for 10 years, I mean, at the time, I'm running my software business, which is becoming incredibly successful, and I don't really know what to do. I don't know where to start. I'm not in construction. I've never done anything like this before. So for 10 years, I'm just thinking, and I'm just praying and just starting to formulate the idea. And what I found was one of the most important things was to talk out the vision. So when I met different people, I went, hey, I've got this idea. And most people, and probably a lot of people watching now, you think, build a national landmark, really? Their eyes roll over and they're like, oh, okay, humour him, sort of thing. But what I found was every now and again I'd meet somebody who gave me a little nugget. So is the dream and the vision now what I saw at the beginning? No, not at all, because I've sort of never. I've always said I haven't got the monopoly on this vision. I've got an element of it,
Right.
and then I'm just believing that I'm going to meet people with more expertise, more insight that are going to build into that. And as we've talked before, GLS have helped me with that. Um, so so that's really how it happened. And then 7 years ago, that's the moment that I thought, right, I've got to start working on this. And the concept is really simple. A giant structure made of 1 million bricks. Every brick represents an answered prayer. Point your phone at the brick. Your phone lights up and tells you the story.
Now that's fascinating. The tech involved in that. Now, you're involved in software, so you'll understand the tech world. I'm going to come to that a bit later.
Well,
The thing I'm particularly interested in to dig in before we get into that level of detail, though,
yeah,
really casting the vision for this project. You're obviously going to have to get some people around you. It's not something that you can do on your own. You said you've been having people coming alongside and gathering nuggets from various places. How did you go about casting the vision for the project so people could catch it?
yeah. What I did first of all was I pulled in about 20 of my friends and went, hey, this is my idea. What do you think? And it was really interesting. I thought everybody's going to like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, go for it. That's not what happened at all. I mean, all the accountants in the room were like just working out the numbers, going, that's not going to work, Rich. It's going to take you 4 years to watch all the videos of all the answered prayers and stuff like that. The logistics of collecting this, it's just not going to work. And then I've got the creatives who are like, by the end of the meeting, they're building one in every country in the on the planet. So, but I think there is a real power in speaking it out to as many people as you can, because I externally process, and it helped me to start formulate the vision. And then what happened was, along the journey, the people that you think are going to back you don't back you.
Right.
Guaranteed. People that I thought, oh, they're going to be all over this. So that's nice. And then out of the woodwork, just people go, oh, that's interesting. And then you talk to them and you can just tell that they've got it immediately. They understand the concept. You don't really need to explain it. You definitely don't need to justify it. And then you start working on it. And I think if I had, at that stage 7 years ago, a real understanding of what was ahead of me, well, maybe I would have stopped.
That's often a challenge, isn't it? And when you've got this idea, this concept, this vision. One of the quotes that I really enjoyed coming across in when I was just looking at some of the stuff that you said about the project was a Charlespurgeon quote that says, "We're too prone to engrave our trials in marble and write our blessings in sand." And that's never been more true, I think, than this last season that we're all coming through. So how does that impact in the vision, the mission, and in casting vision?
Well, yeah, because what we have suffered over the last 18 months is an onslaught of facts and figures. And those facts and figures, if you're not careful, I believe, can cloud the truth. So I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that we are going to build a national landmark in the heart of this country that is going to proclaim and ignite a faith for prayer and bring the conversation of prayer into the national consciousness. I can present to you and probably speak for multiple hours about all the reasons why that's not going to happen, and all the people that have told me how impossible that is. And, we have a few mountains ahead of us, but I have a whole load of mountains behind me. And on the journey, the challenge is just trying to not look too far ahead, but just try and work out what you've got to do and then celebrate those successes. And what I do is, when I look at the mountain that I'm in right now, I need to raise 2.5 million within a matter of days. And that could freak most people out. There are moments where it freaks me out still. But what I'm doing is, as Spurgeon sort of intimates, I'm looking back at the successes and going, wait a second, we've been here before. Okay, the mountain's a bit bigger, but we got over that one and we didn't think we would. And that's, I find, a massively strengthening and encouraging approach to take. And it tells me, in the simplest terms, that God is with what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter any of the other influences.
So there's two things that are happening right at the moment that you're going to come and tell me about crowdsourcing in a moment. Before you do that, you've published a book recently, haven't you, called Remember, Revealing the Eternal Power of Answer Prayer, and that's available on SVCK. Just tell us a little bit about your book, and then explain what the crowdfunding, how it's working, and where you're heading with it.
Well, the book really was a bit of an explanation of why we're doing what we're doing. I don't actually talk about the project in the book until the last couple of pages, but it's really talking about the importance of remembering the things that God has done and how that can help you in the present, how meditating and reflecting on what's happened in the past can help you in the now and help you to tackle the anxieties and worries of the future. And the overall hope is that somebody in any storm of life will be able to type their situation into an app when they arrive, and then the app will guide them around Eternal Wall, and they'll read loads of stories of people who've been in the same circumstance, the same situation, and they've prayed to Jesus, and this is what's happened on their journey. It's not to say that we're promoting a supermarket God, that you present your list and he provides everything you need. Any Christian will tell you that is not that's not what happens. God's more interested in the journey, and that's what we're trying to reflect on. And the book Remember is really sort of pulling out some of those stories and making sure that we get into the habit of consolidating those successes.
Brilliant.
Making sure that we write them down, because there are all times where it's dark and it's hard, and that's when you've got to pull the stories out and go, wait a second, God did this for me a few years ago and he hasn't changed. He still loves me.
There's incredible stories throughout the Old Testament, aren't there, of people putting memorials in place to remember those kind of things. And this is a very similar territory. So this is brilliant. In terms of the crowdfunding and looking for partners for that and fundraising, just tell us a little bit about how that's going, because it started. Was it last week? It started a couple of weeks ago. It started. You're a couple of weeks in, and you've got some more weeks to go. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's when the first crowdfunder we did right at the very beginning was for £40,000, and I said if I ever suggest doing this again, lock me away and throw away the key, because you are basically putting yourself in a position where you can't control the outcomes. And I've said to the team, we've got a fearless team. They're amazing. We're not responsible for the response. Our job is to just give the opportunity. It's been a 17-year journey, Roger, to get this far.
Yeah.
We have planning permission. We are building the access road in November. We are building the foundations after that, which is all funded. And if we as a team can raise, if the nation can raise £2.5 million, we're going to start building. And like Pringles, once you start, you can't stop, So it is going to happen. And it's a huge challenge to ride the roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's a bit like sales, isn't it? You get a flood of sales and then suddenly it dries up. You don't really know what's happening sometimes. And but we're just trying to concentrate on giving as many people the opportunity, and I'll do that if that's okay for your listeners. The address is crowdfunder.co.uk/eternal wall. And my plead and my beg and my prayer is, can you help us?
Yeah.
I have the great benefit that there is a whole book in the Bible that talks about how man built a wall. I've got a template, and one of the things that he does is he gets people to build their different sections. And for me and for our team, it is impossible for us to do this on our own. It's not even our job. And what we're saying to people is, look, there's a part of this wall that is going to represent the stories of Cambridge. There's a part that's going to represent Gateshead and Newcastle and Scott, Edinburgh or Belfast. And what I'm saying to you is, can you be responsible for your part of the wall?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Can we all join together? Because the power of communicating to the nation that the church, from all different expressions, from all different shapes and sizes, from all over this country, have joined together to declare to this nation that Jesus is alive and answers prayer, man, that is going to have a monumental outcome in this nation. And I just invite you all to be part of it.
That's brilliant. We'll include the link at the bottom of the screen, and indeed in the communication to follow. And we'll be supporting you and cheering you on all the way through, Richard. Now, in terms of making it happen, there's a couple of things I'd like us to explore. The first is the Mobius strip idea and what is a Mobius strip, and the second is why Coleshill. So first of all, Mobius strip. Why is it a Mobius strip? Why is that important and it's so important to the design?
Well, we ran a global competition to get this designed, and the architect Paul Bulkley from Snug Architects, based in Winchester, came up with this fantastic design. And the beauty of a Mobius strip is, firstly, it has no beginning and it has no end. And we feel that feeds in beautifully into the narrative of the God who always answers. And the other beauty of it is, it's, a lot of people, when we said it's going to be called the wall and we didn't know what it looked like, they were like, yeah, but walls divide, and, they called division. Well, the beauty of this design is you cannot be on the inside and you cannot be on the outside of this wall. It's a wall for everybody. And again, I believe that communicates God's heart for the nation.
One of the interesting Mobius strips, isn't it, is if you start with your pen in the middle at one side and you carry on, you keep going around, you get to the end, you join up to where you started, and both the inside and the outside of the strip all have a line on them. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an incredible structure, and he's built it in such a way that the Mobius strip rises up into the skyline, 50 meters, which is twice the height of the Angel of the North. This will be a massive structure. Now, in terms of why we've picked Coleshill, in really simple terms, we haven't. Because what happened was I went away and I prayed and I said, God, can you find me some land? I went over to the States, and this lady came up to me, didn't know anything that I was doing. And she said, God wants you to know he's got some heavenly land for you, which I thought was so cool, traveling across the other side of the planet to hear God like that. And so we have a team of people praying for us. That's a very important part, and if you look at my business function, I've got all the different functions. One of them is prayer, is equally as important as marketing to us. And this lady said, well, if God's told us that he's got some land, I'll just ask him where it is.
Brilliant.
which sort of made me laugh a little bit, the simplicity of it. But a few days later, she sent me a map. And she circled this piece of land and said, this is where it is. And what she didn't know was the person who owned that land had emailed me just a few days before, which is incredible. And then I meet with that person. And at the end of the meeting, wealthy landowner. And at the end of the meeting, I find out that God had given me the vision 17 years ago, but God had given him the vision 17 and a half years ago.
Wow.
And but even at that point, Roger, I didn't tell him about the circled land because I didn't want to manipulate the situation.
Yeah.
So he went away, prayed, came back and said, well, I'm going to I'm going to give you a piece of land. And he gave me some land in Solihull. And, the lady who prayed was like, oh, no, that's not the right piece of land. I'm like, look, he's given us a piece of land. It's worth a lot of money. Let's just take it. But after a few months, it didn't work. And then he gave us another piece of land, and then that didn't work. And then, it was up and down. But after 2 years, he paid an architect to look at all his portfolio and find the best piece of land for us, which was, guess where? Where the lady had circled 2 years previous.
Wow.
And so for us, that is going back to that sort of remembrance theme. For me, that's a massive flag in the sand.
Yeah.
That's a miracle story of God's favour.
Yeah.
And if ever I'm wobbling, I go back to that story and go, I could not have made that up. I could not have engineered that. And, as somebody said to me recently, because sometimes you have a wobble, and he said, Rich, you're either the luckiest man in the world or God's on the case.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going for the latter.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I remember hearing the story a few years ago at one of the GLS events, actually. And it seems so incredible. Now, one of the things we talked earlier about the tech challenges and the tech opportunities that you're going to be embracing. So in terms of that space, just explain. You're going to point your phone at the wall and it's going to talk to you. What's going on here?
Yeah. I've been talking for years about this concept, and my son, who's a bit of a techie, was like, Dad, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, son, I've no idea. I've no idea, but I don't need an idea yet. I need the idea when we get closer to building it. And but it's using augmented reality. So we don't put any technology in the structure, because that would, you're obviously building in long-term cost issues then. And the phone works out where you're standing, the angle of the phone, where it's pointing, and so it can work out what brick you're pointing to without particularly using a camera function. And then through the augmented reality, you can zoom in or zoom out and pick the brick that you want to read. And what we'll do is that the data will move about on the eternal wall. So we can order the prayers in date order. We can order them in subject matter. What are the answered prayers during COVID that have happened? We can do it in geography and go to this part of the wall and you'll see the answered prayers from Scotland. Go to this part of the wall and you'll see the answered prayers from Cornwall. And we've just appointed our technology company to do that, who are based in Dallas and a global leader. I have to say, the level of relief that we can actually do what I've been dreaming of doing after 17 years is good.
It's fascinating.
One lesson.
This journey from we said earlier, the vision of looking beyond the horizon, just seeing what's out of sight, and then seeing that as we just start to crest the horizon and start to see, it's there, it's coming into reality, it's really going to be happening. That's brilliant.
One of the interesting things of operating like that and thinking like that is that when you're in the moment where everyone else is celebrating, like, hey, yeah, we've got the land, I'm already thinking about the next challenge.
Yeah.
I've afforded myself a moment where I thought, yeah, we've probably got the land now, had a little celebration, but you're always ahead. And we've got BBC doing a documentary, and they were like, what's it going to be like on opening day? And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be celebrating, because I'm going to be thinking about, right, I've got to get 300,000, 400,000 people through the door. My job's just starting to begin here, and I guess that's one of the challenges of leadership, isn't it? You're always looking ahead at the next challenge on its way.
That's so true. That's so true. In fact, that brings us on to the next point. Increase. What's next? You're starting off with a target of half a dozen, more than half a dozen. What's your first target? What's your second target? What's your third? It's 200,000, isn't it? You're aiming to start off.
Yeah, we're looking to get 200,000 answered prayers for when we open, and we will open at the end of 23, funds providing. And the idea is that we'll light the structure up just to the degree that we've got the answered prayers. but what we're trying to effect here is a cultural change. We're not. If we were building this in America, I reckon we'd have the stories by now. And we're trying to get 250,000 stories from outside the UK. Excuse me, but um, but in Britain we're a little bit more reserved, and we don't like to talk about successes so much, which I find fascinating that God has asked us to do this here. So there's a big cultural shift that we're trying to promote, but the plan is 200,000 on day one, move up to 1 million, and then once we've hit 1 million, then we'll be putting the stories not just on the front of the bricks, but on the sides of the bricks. So we'll be able to get up to 5 million.
Brilliant.
You know, there's a massive, 1 million is a massive number. If you put 1 million Lego bricks on top of each other, you hit the stratosphere.
Really.
I mean, it's a huge number, and the what we're doing, we're using some technology that's never been used before. We're building a structure that pushes the boundaries of engineering because the strip twists and turns. We're building the largest Mobius strip in history. We're trying to crowdfund and crowdsource the first ever national landmark. And just to throw in, I'm trying to get the church united and working together. I mean, they are overwhelming tasks, just one of them. And the only way to cope with that is just to take it bit by bit. You know, today the challenge for me and my team is to get the opportunity that everybody can be part of this, get that message out as far and wide as I can. I can't allow myself to think about any of the other challenges. I know we've got to deal with them, but I'm just trying to take one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just taking one piece, one step further, figuring out what the next milestone is going to be, and getting through that. And as you said, as you're approaching this milestone, your mind has left it way behind. You're on to the next one or two, thinking about where it's going.
Yeah, so, that's correct.
In kind of a couple of areas just to conclude on. The first is that I like to think of difference makers. And in summary, what's the difference you want to make, and what makes you different?
And what makes me different? Okay. The difference I want to make is I want to take the conversation of prayer to outside the four walls of the church, to be a conversation that the whole nation can have and consider. What makes me different? I think that I have an utter conviction that I'm doing the right thing, and I am not going to stop.
Brilliant. We're on a good job, and we're not coming down. We're building the walls. Fantastic. In terms of you mentioned something earlier on. I just want to pick up on a focus on for the last couple of minutes of our talk together, and that's these nuggets. You talked about nuggets that came your way all along your journey, and I know the GLS and the GLS events have been part of that journey for you. So just unpack a little bit about that. Which are the nuggets that you found that have come out from the Global Leadership Summit and the speakers we've had there?
Yeah, I think what I do is when I listen to the speakers at GLS, and I always come away with things that I can immediately put into the way that I work, and I'll do that pretty much immediately, to be honest. I mean, I've often listened to a speaker, and then 2 days later in my sort of team meeting, I've just copied what they've said, and they think, gosh, Rich is quite wise. Well, I'm just copying it from the GLS, stuff. But I suppose it's it's getting the nuggets. What is the one thing that I can pick up from that talk that I can take into my operation? I mean, just some examples that spring to mind. The guy who talked about rejection. Just getting used to, I mean, that was phenomenal because that's a daily experience for me. I mean, not everybody likes this, and it's hard, and just the sense of him just toughening up and just saying, well, that's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
and just sort of brushing off and go, great, next one. I mean, that was great for me. I think there was another one. I can't remember the speaker talked about what you do with different jobs and delegating them. You
Right.
know, you either delegate them or you throw them away.
Yeah.
And my job is to do what only I can do. That's one of the things I've come away with. That I try and rigorously prioritize and look at what I'm doing and think, could anybody else be doing this?
Yeah.
And so the two things that I can do is one, cast the vision in a way that most people can't because it's so deep within me after 17 years. And the second is think. And so I spend a lot of time thinking.
Yeah.
And sitting in those sessions for me, and I'm not expecting a payment for this or anything like that, but they're like gold dust for me because I'm getting the light into somebody else's world who's walked on a journey for many, many years, and the stuff that they are saying is not something that they've read in a book. They've lived it, and so there's a depth and a wisdom that I don't think you can get from other sources, and that's why I find it so valuable.
Brilliant. One of the things I like to say to people whenever they're engaging with any kind of education, development, training, whatever it might be, is to ask the question, so what?
Yes.
So what one thing am I going to do differently as a result of being in this event, listening to this speaker? This year we're referring to the Summit One. What's that one thing you're taking away from the summit? And that's so brilliantly explained in what you've just been sharing, to be able to just absorb something new that's going to make a stride, going to make a difference, going to make a difference in what you're doing, taking that dream forward.
Yeah, and one of the things that, and I guess this is linked to how to grow something fast. Somebody said to me, the things that made you successful in the first year are not going to make you successful in the seventh year.
Yeah.
Or even the second year. And so in that respect, you've got to be really hungry to learn. And you've either got to be hungry to put other people who are better than you, who've got greater experience than you. And if you can't plug the gap that way, then you've got to find out. And I think there's two things in that you're constantly reinventing, and you have to make sure that you've got a really strong team that can cope with those gear shifts. Not everybody can.
The one of the things, and something else I like to talk about is that I never had my best ideas. It's up to me to find the dream, to find the vision, to look beyond the horizon. But in order to figure out how to get there, I usually never had my best ideas. It's somebody else in the room who spotted something, who shared something, an anecdote, maybe something I'd completely missed, and just draws something else out for me that makes the difference between what I'm going to do today and what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, very good. I often find, Roger, as well, it's the quiet ones. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I learned that early on in my experience of working with British Gas. And we had one of these workshop sessions, and they said, we failed at the task, as you do in those workshop sessions. And they said, but the answer was actually given by this guy. And he was really quiet. And then they said, how did you feel when they just ignored your answer? And he was like, well, I'd spent 30 minutes thinking about it before I said it. And gobby people like me, you just externally process, and you've got all manner of ideas firing about. But I find the quiet people, I think, yeah, you've really thought about that before you speak. So I really sort of have my ears attentive to them.
Brilliant. Rich, it's been fantastic to spend some time just chatting about the Eternal Wall, in the progress that you've been making, in the crowdfunding, just looking at the original dream and inspiration for what you're looking at. 17 years in the making, and there's a year or two more to come. It's been fantastic to spend time with you. I'm really excited to see where this is all leading you. And for those that are watching today, are coming to the Global Leadership Summit, I really look forward to seeing you there too. it's been fabulous to have you, Rich. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye now.
Bye now.